It was supposed to be Marvel's grand revival, the long-awaited return of the Fantastic Four. A bold, cinematic reintroduction of one of the most iconic teams in comic book history. Fans had waited over a decade for a proper take, and Marvel Studios had promised that this was it, the version that would finally get it right. But something strange happened along the way. Instead of audiences talking about superpowers, plot twists, or epic battles, they're talking about press conferences, political speeches, and a star who might have unintentionally hijacked the entire movie. Now let's be clear, this isn't about Pedro's acting ability. The man has range. From The Mandalorian to The Last of Us, he's shown his chops. But casting him as Mr. Fantastic? That raised eyebrows. From the moment his name was announced, the fan base was split. Reed Richards is meant to be quiet intensity personified, a genius-level intellect masked by a stoic calm. Pedro Pascal, with his emotionally expressive style and chaotic charisma, didn't scream Reed Richards to longtime fans. Forums lit up with skeptical takes. Why not a lesser-known actor who fits the mold better? People asked. Some even joked, is Pedro Marvel's new poster boy, or just the safest PR bet they could make? It was one thing to question the casting, but what came next set the entire fandom ablaze. Pedro didn't just step into the role, he stepped into controversy. The press tour, which should have been a celebration of Marvel's grand return, turned into a chaotic whirlwind of political declarations and emotional monologues. During interviews, Pedro broke down in tears, denouncing Trump-era politics and proclaiming the death of cinema. His statements were passionate, sure, but they weren't what fans expected or wanted during a campaign meant to spark joy and excitement. And it didn't stop. In fact, Pedro seemed to double down with each appearance. At one press stop, he wiped tears away while declaring himself a proud male feminist, lamenting the state of free speech and blaming low box office numbers on political boycotts. MAGA isn't watching this film, he claimed, suggesting that conservative audiences were purposefully avoiding Fantastic Four due to an anti-Hollywood agenda. The internet exploded. Some fans applauded his candor, others were furious that politics had been dragged into what should have been a safe, escapist, superhero rollout. The backlash was swift and it hit where it hurt. Viewership. While the movie opened with an impressive $257 million globally, second-week ticket sales took a noticeable dip. Fans who saw the movie opening weekend weren't returning. Word of mouth was quiet. The buzz had shifted from must-see Marvel reboot to off-screen drama overload. Co-stars began skipping events. Interviews were canceled at the last minute. Publicists stopped doing live press. The atmosphere around the film turned cold, fast. Even internally, whispers began circulating. Is this film still salvageable? Inside Marvel and Disney, the panic was real. Executives held closed-door meetings. Talking points were revised. Cast members were quietly instructed to avoid political commentary. PR teams began micromanaging interviews, offering pre-approved scripts for appearances. But the damage was done. One source close to the studio allegedly said, "This wasn't the plan. We wanted headlines for the movie, not for a meltdown." Some insiders even hinted that alternate casting choices were considered during early development, and that the final pick might have been more about star power than synergy. Meanwhile, social media was on fire. Fans were split down the middle. On one side, Pedro was praised as a freedom fighter, someone using his platform to stand up for what he believed in. On the other, critics called him tone-deaf, out of touch, and selfish for hijacking a press tour to push personal beliefs. Old videos surfaced, clips from other films' press tours where Pedro had gone on similar tangents. This wasn't new behavior, it just had a bigger spotlight now. And Marvel? They were stuck in the middle, watching the narrative spiral out of their control. Marvel's identity crisis was now fully visible. For years, fans had debated the studio's increasing focus on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, as a core narrative driver. Some applauded the shift. Others accused the studio of prioritizing messaging over storytelling. Kevin Feige had gone on record just weeks before saying that DEI was the future of Marvel, and Bob Iger wasn't backing down either. But now, with the Fantastic Four fiasco unfolding, fans started to wonder if Marvel was listening, or just doubling down out of corporate stubbornness. And all of this? It completely overshadowed the movie itself. No one was talking about the film's plot, performances, or pacing. The reviews were lukewarm. The action sequences were fine. The CGI was decent. But it all felt forgettable. Pedro's Reed Richards was underused. His powers were barely shown, and fans walked out of the theater feeling underwhelmed. It wasn't bad, many said, but I barely remember it. The reboot that was supposed to set the stage for Marvel's next big phase had become an afterthought to the spectacle unfolding in the real world. Let's rewind to where this all really started spiraling. It was a calm Thursday afternoon when Pedro Pascal made what would become one of the most talked-about stops on the entire Fantastic Four promo circuit. The studio had set up a tightly choreographed press day, interviews back-to-back, safe questions, feel-good energy. But when Pedro took his seat, something changed. Instead of light talk about his character or Marvel trivia, he veered into heavy political territory almost immediately. "I'm tearing up right now," he said, "thinking about what's happening in this country, what Trump has done to free speech, to art, to film." The room fell silent. Not a single follow-up question touched on the movie after that. By the time the clip hit social media, reactions were pouring in by the second. Some users called it brave. Others called it unhinged. Comment sections flooded with debates, not about the movie, but about Pedro's emotional breakdown. One TikTok comment with over 40,000 likes read, "I didn't come here for trauma, I came here for stretchy limbs." That pretty much summed up the public mood. People weren't ready for the whiplash of watching a superhero movie turn into a nationwide cultural debate. Back inside Disney's glass-walled offices, the situation was described as beyond damage control. Multiple insiders confirmed that what had started as whispers about Pedro Pascal's press tour behavior had evolved into full-on strategy briefings. Analysts from Marvel's marketing team were reportedly flown in to present a post-mortem, not after the movie wrapped, but while it was still in theaters. That's how fast things were spiraling. One leaked email, never confirmed but widely circulated, described the tone as shell-shocked. Executives were allegedly stunned not just by the fallout, but by how unprepared they were to stop it. The Fantastic Four reboot had been crafted to avoid controversy, not attract it. It was built as a soft reset, a back-to-basics blockbuster. But Pedro's emotion-laden interviews threw gasoline on a fire no one saw coming. What began as a casting controversy turned into a litmus test for how much politics audiences could tolerate in their escapism. What's more, the PR team reportedly began tracking Pedro's unscheduled public appearances, creating a crisis calendar. Anytime he was spotted at a podcast studio or TV network, red alerts would go off. Some platforms were quietly asked not to publish his segments. Others delayed them indefinitely. But Pedro wasn't slowing down. In one particularly intense segment that never aired but was leaked by a studio staffer, Pedro allegedly compared his Fantastic Four role to being a symbol of resistance in a post-truth world. Meanwhile, the online ecosystem surrounding the drama had mutated into its own beast. TikTok creators began breaking down Pedro's speeches frame by frame like conspiracy footage. Twitter threads analyzed his eye movements, his pauses, the tone of his voice. Was he having a mental breakdown? Was this performance art? Was it authentic, manufactured? No one could agree. And that only made people talk more. Even channels that normally reviewed plot theories and Easter eggs pivoted to discuss Pedro's state of mind. At the same time, a surprising undercurrent was building. Fans of the comic books began pushing back. Hardcore readers felt that the heart of the Fantastic Four had been lost, not just in the film, but in everything swirling around it. Reed Richards, they argued, wasn't supposed to be a symbol for any political ideology. He was logic, discipline, exploration. Turning him into an emotional mouthpiece, they said, betrayed the essence of the character. Marvel's merchandising division wasn't spared either. Sales for Fantastic Four toys, posters, and tie-ins were underwhelming. Retailers reported lukewarm interest compared to past Marvel launches. One insider admitted that shelf space reserved for Fantastic Four products was being reconsidered after week 2. "We didn't expect this much apathy," they said. The buzz became backlash. Pedro Pascal became bigger than the movie. In the age of algorithm-driven engagement, he stole the algorithm. He was the headline, the discourse, the spectacle. Even people who hadn't seen the movie had opinions about it, based purely on the drama. That's how deep the story ran. And let's not forget the broader industry ripple. PR firms across Hollywood began rewriting playbooks. One veteran strategist even published an op-ed titled "The Pascal Problem," advising studios to vet stars not just for scandal, but for volatility, emotional unpredictability that could derail even the safest franchises. Casting directors were warned to look beyond the performance and into the platform. What message does this actor bring with them? Can the studio control it? In the end, Fantastic Four made money, but it left a bitter aftertaste. For every fan who admired Pedro's passion, there were 2 who walked away feeling alienated. The press tour became infamous. The brand took a hit. And the future of the reboot? Uncertain. Pedro Pascal didn't ruin Fantastic Four. He just made it about something else entirely. Because in the age of constant discourse, the loudest story wins. And this time, the loudest story wasn't the plot or the visuals or even the performance, and it was everything else.